Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
In a year that reshaped the world, 2024 brought seismic shifts, bold moves, and unforgettable moments that will echo through history around the globe. Wars continued to ravage nations, but new alliances and power shifts began to rewrite the rules of geopolitics. 2024 also bore witness to nature's fury. Climate change fueled deadly wildfires, devastating floods, and unprecedented storms. Devastating wars to technological revolutions. 2024 was the year that changed everything. The Game Changers 2024. The year that reshaped our future. Only on WION. World is One.
We registered this company in 2003. So our aim was to make the quality medicine for everyone, affordable to everyone.
Watch Makers of New India. At this time, only on WION World is One.
Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post with me, Hemkaur Saroya. Despite the toppling of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, UN says the war in Syria is not over yet. From the United States to European and Arab nations, all leaders in these countries are closely monitoring this new phase of Syria's political chapter and also watching Russia and Iran's activities surrounding Damascus. We will get you the latest. Today we turn our attention to the future of Syria. European nations have made it clear that extremism, Russia and Iran have no role to play in Syria. US says it will ensure that there is no resurgence of ISIS in the country. How are Russia and Iran responding to these developments? More on this in our next report.
US, Arab League and Turkey have joined hands to help Syria transition into a new phase. US top diplomats have arrived in Syria for talks with the new rulers. European nations have warned allies of the former Syrian government that they will directly engage with the new Syrian leaders. EU Foreign Policy Chief has strictly warned that extremism, Russia and Iran have no role to play in Syria's future.
These are principles of territorial integrity, sovereignty, accountability, but also inclusiveness of government, taking into account especially the minorities and women's rights in this case. This process has to be Syria-led and Syria-owned and reflect the Syrian people in all of its diversity. This is very, very important. Extremism, Russia and Iran also should not have a place in Syria's future.
A French diplomat delegation arrived at the country's embassy in Damascus, which has been shut for years. Britain and Germany have also said they have sent delegations to hold talks with Syria's new leadership.
I can confirm today that we have sent a delegation of senior UK officials to Damascus this week for meetings with the new interim Syrian authorities and members of civil society groups in Syria. And it underlies our commitment to Syria. Yesterday I announced a £50 million package of humanitarian aid.
Russia has been a staunch ally of Assad. Moscow has two key military bases in the West Asian nation. In 2015, Russia launched an air campaign in support of Assad that turned the tide of the war in the government's favor. This time, however, distracted by its war in Ukraine, Russia was either unwilling or unable to help Assad's government stop the rebels' lightning offensive after it began in late November this year. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow stands undefeated in Syria. Russia has even sent proposals to new Syrian rulers over its military bases.
We came to Syria 10 years ago so that a terrorist enclave would not be created there, like what we have seen in some other countries, like in, let's say, Afghanistan. Overall, we have achieved our goals. And even those groups that once fought with the Assad regime, with the government forces, they too have undergone internal changes. It is not without reason that today many European countries and the United States want to establish relations with them. If they are terrorist organizations, why are you coming there?
Another ally of the former Syrian government, Iran, has warned Israel and the United States over Syria. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei claims rebels' activities in Syria were carried out by the US and Israel. Khamenei says that the fall of Assad's government in Syria does not mean the end of the axis of resistance.
With the actions taken in Syria and the atrocities committed by the Zionist regime and the US, as well as the support they are receiving from others, they thought the resistance had ended. They are heavily mistaken.
Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, has promised to break from the past. Speaking about Syria's future, he says one of the early steps would include the West to lift its sanctions on the country.
We must deal with the Syrian issue in line with current events. These current events require the lifting of all sanctions because these sanctions were placed on Syria due to the regime that was ruling Syria and had committed all these crimes. So it makes no sense to convict the torturer and the victim at the same time. Today, thank God, the weak have gained victory over this regime and kicked out this regime from the political scene. These sanctions must be lifted. Then we will be able to implement our programs for growth and reform in the country.
The UN says it sees a flame of hope in the war-torn country, but the agency has warned of significant challenges ahead.
The Middle East is being consumed by many fires. But today there is a flame of hope in Syria, and that flame must not be extinguished. The people of Syria stand at the moment of history and the moment of opportunity, and that opportunity cannot be missed.
The collapse of Bashar al-Assad's government not only turned the page on his 24-year presidency, but also marked the end of over 50 years of his family's reign in Syria. The deposed president, his wife and children are in Russia, where they have been offered asylum. Several posts on social media about Assad's future are also doing the rounds. In our next report, we ask, what lies ahead for Bashar al-Assad and his family?
After 54 years in power, the al-Assad family's rule has ended in Syria. Before Assad took office in 2000, his late father, Hafiz, was president for 3 decades. Just before the rebels, led by the Islamist militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, entered capital Damascus, the deposed president, his wife and their 3 children fled the country. Since then, Assad did not make any public statement till Monday. Assad claimed he wanted to stay in Syria even after the rebels captured the capital, but the Russian military evacuated him from their base in western Syria after it came under attack. Amid the speculations about Assad's future, the focus is also on the possibility of Assad's potential return to Syria. A post on X with over 1 million views says the deposed president is planning to be a podcaster. However, there is no confirmation from Assad or any other verified source. Russia says it provided asylum to Assad on humanitarian grounds, with President Vladimir Putin stating that he has plans to meet Bashar al-Assad.
To be honest, I've not yet seen President Assad after he arrived in Moscow, but I plan to do it. I will surely speak to him.
A 2019 investigation by the Financial Times stated that Assad's extended family had purchased at least 18 luxury apartments in the Russian capital during the civil war. A 2022 US State Department report to Congress said the extended Assad family's net worth was between $1 to $2 billion. The department noted that it was difficult to estimate their assets that are believed to be spread out and concealed in numerous accounts, real estate portfolios, corporations, and offshore tax havens. The UN claims it is working to find evidence of torture by the Assad regime in Syria.
So it's a very delicate and fluid situation. There is, however, the potential in this now accessible crime scene, or maybe I should say interlocking series of crime scenes. There is now the possibility of accessing evidence of the highest level of regime and allied crimes responsibility.
On Tuesday, the Islamist rebel leader in Syria said senior officials of the ousted regimes found to be involved in torturing political prisoners will be named and repatriated. France has sought an arrest warrant for Assad for alleged complicity in crimes against humanity and war crimes in connection with a deadly chemical attack in Syria in 2013. For now, Assad is unlikely to leave Russia for any other country where he could be extradited to Syria or be charged with a war crime.
After rebels toppled Bashar al-Assad's government, many former prisoners in Syria are now coming forward with their stories. One of them is Ghazi Mohammad al-Mohammad, who was told to forget his name and remember the number 3006. This is the story of Ghazi Mohammad al-Mohammad.
With the fall of the Assad government in Syria, many former prisoners are coming forward, shedding light on the plight of jail inmates in the country. Ghazi Mohammed al-Mohammed is one such detainee. Syrian military officers took away his papers, telling him to forget his name and identity.
When they took us to the intelligence branch, of course it's impossible to see faces. They were wearing masks. They took my documents, my passport, and they told me to forget that I got a name. Now your name is 3006. Then they asked me, what's your name? And I answered 3006. Then they wrote it on my forehead, on my hand, and they took pictures from the front and the side.
In jail for over 5 months, Ghazi Mohammed lost 40 kilograms and lived each day in constant fear of execution. The 39-year-old swears he was never involved in Syrian politics. He says he was a merchant who was detained on a brief business trip to Damascus. Ghazi Mohammed thinks his detention could have been because he comes from the northwestern province of Idlib, the heartland of the rebels whose lightning push from south forced Assad to flee on December 8th.
I was taken to the political section first, where I was asked to make some confessions that I didn't want. They were looking through my phone, of course. I had conversations on my phone about how Assad was stealing the country and removing qualified individuals from it. Even though it was just words, they nonetheless saw it as a crime. My main crime is about my brothers in Idlib. My eldest is a businessman who serves on the Idlib Peace Committee.
For the first few days in jail, Ghazi Mohammed was hung by his wrists from a bar high up in a cell, with his feet not touching the floor. After that, he was lowered and beaten while being fed practically nothing. His only contact was with the jailers. After a month or so, Mohammed was handed over to military intelligence, who told him he was only a number. Thrown into a narrow cell about 2 meters long and 1.2 meters wide, an overhead skylight was his only source of light. The cell did not have water or electricity.
Indeed, the day I was released, I told myself that I'm in a dream until I went outside to the street. I was in a dream. I told myself, you're released from the security branches.
The International Committee of the Red Cross says that it has documented over 35,000 cases of disappearance in Syria. Unlike many of them, Mohammed was lucky to come back.
It has been over 14 months of war in Gaza, and civilians in the enclave are continuing to pay the price. Israeli forces have issued new evacuation orders in central Gaza. As per latest reports, Biden administration has increased its efforts for Gaza's ceasefire in hopes of attaining a truce before Donald Trump's inauguration next year. In our next report, we ask, are Hamas and Israel inching closer to a ceasefire deal?
The only thing I wish for is that the bloodshed and the fire of this war to come to an end, because the people have sacrificed enough. On top of that, there's hunger and a year and a half without electricity, with people dying from severe cold in the tents.
Palestinians in Gaza are facing harsh winters for a second time. For over 14 months, world leaders have been aiming to achieve a ceasefire in the enclave, which has claimed over 45,000 lives. This week, Israeli military issued yet another evacuation order for the enclave. Dozens of Palestinians have lost their lives in overnight Israeli strikes on the Daraj neighborhood in Gaza City.
We were surprised to find that most of the martyrs were charred bodies, and the bodies were of children and women. Civil defense crews are still searching for missing persons under the targeted house.
Israel says Hamas took over 250 hostages last year, and out of 250, 100 hostages are still held captive. There is no certainty whether all 100 civilians are still alive. In recent days, Biden administration has increased its efforts to secure the hostage deal. The CIA chief has reportedly made a trip to Doha to meet the Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani to bridge the gap between Israel and Hamas. Biden government wants to close the deal before Donald Trump's inauguration next year, while Washington is looking at Gaza's future. US National Security Advisor emphasized the need for a political solution to the Israel-Hamas war.
How do you convert that into a long-term strategic endgame where Israel is secure on a durable basis and where Gaza emerges where Hamas is not in power? And the best way to do that, in judgment, is to have a political solution, a political track alongside the military track, and that starts with the basic concept of essentially trying to make sure that the ordinary civilians of Gaza, the innocent people of Gaza, are not being put in a position where things are so bad that they all become radicalized and you have nothing to work with going forward.
Along with talks in Doha, meetings are also being held in Cairo. Israel says Hamas is showing flexibility in hostage talks, but nothing is certain for now. Hamas says a deal is possible if Israel stops setting new conditions. Reports quoting an Arab diplomat say that mediators continue to make progress towards a ceasefire and hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas, but will likely need weeks, not just days, in order to finalize an agreement. There have been repeated rounds of talks over the past year, all of which have ended in failure, with Israel insisting on retaining a military presence in Gaza and Hamas refusing to release hostages until the troops are pulled out.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stand for a fourth day of testimony in his corruption trial. The Israeli Prime Minister is on trial in 3 corruption cases. He faces charges of fraud and breach of trust. Watch.
For the second week, Israel's Prime Minister was back in court. Benjamin Netanyahu appeared in the Tel Aviv court once more to continue his testimony in the long-standing corruption trial. After being excused from court on Tuesday, Israel's Prime Minister took the stand once more on Wednesday. Unusual circumstances were cited by his solicitors as the cause for a day's postponement. However, he was back on the stand for the third day. The judge had ordered Netanyahu to appear in court 3 times a week for 6 hours per visit. Accusations of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust are among the 3 distinct criminal cases that the incumbent leader faces. Case 1000, Case 2000, and Case 4000 are the names given to them. Case 1000, the Gifts Affair, where he is accused of accepting costly gifts from a millionaire Hollywood producer in exchange for assistance with personal business interests. Case 2000, favorable coverage. It says that Netanyahu is accused of requesting regulatory favors from a media mogul for good press coverage in exchange for legislation to limiting the growth of a rival newspaper. And Case 4000, regulatory favors, where prosecutors allege that Netanyahu granted regulatory favors to Israeli telecommunications company for positive coverage. On Wednesday, the Prime Minister testified for the last case, in which he also faces the most severe charges. Netanyahu has been accused of bribing the owner of Bezek Telecommunications Company's owner, Shaul Elovich, for positive media coverage of him and his wife on the news website Wallah. Prosecutors listed 315 things published on Wallah, and Netanyahu denied that he and his wife had any knowledge of the items listed. He also said that he did not own a laptop or mobile phone. Rejecting claims that he influenced Wallah's coverage, Netanyahu said that Wallah is more hostile and venomous than Haaretz. Over the coming days, Netanyahu will be questioned on 2 other cases. The corruption trial, which was earlier taking place at the Jerusalem District Court, has been moved to a Tel Aviv District Court in an underground bunker for security reasons. Netanyahu has rarely attended the court proceedings since the trial began in 2020.
Christmas is right around the corner and Lebanon is leaving no stone unturned to celebrate the holiday season with decorations, desserts and lights. We get you this report from the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Take a look.
It is well known about Lebanese that if they fall 100 times, they will stand back up on their feet and keep moving. You saw how in a very short period of time, this war destroyed everything, and look now how everything is being rebuilt in a beautiful way. We are welcoming Christmas in a beautiful way. Look at the atmosphere wherever it is, from Byblos to Betroun to Beirut. We are in Christmas mood. This is very beautiful and we must follow through it with our children and let our children experience Christmas. This is Lebanon, and this is the people of Lebanon. The way they unite, Muslims and Christians, even at Christmas, you see them all together.
And that is all for this edition of the West Asia Post with me, Hemkaur Saroya. Tune in again next week with a brand new lineup. Till then, keep watching WION World is One. Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
West African leaders from the regional group ECOWAS meet for a summit with 3 nation members led by military governments on the brink of quitting the bloc. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger reaffirm as irreversible their decision to quit the group. Human rights groups condemn police action in Kenya after hundreds of activists held peaceful protests in the streets of Nairobi against the rise in femicide cases in the country. And 160 athletes, including 40 young women, gather in the Kimana Reserve for the Maasai Olympics. The event serves to replace the traditional Olamayo, a Maasai rite of passage that involves group lion hunting for young Maasai men to prove their skills, identify their leaders and attract girlfriends. World of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
This week on Tech It Out, we tell you about some of the biggest tech innovations of 2024. We also show you a unique robot that is helping the police patrol the streets of China. And find out how AI is revolutionizing the wind energy landscape. All this and more on WION World is One at these times.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Now, the drama surrounding the American government spending bill simply doesn't seem to be dying down anytime soon. The Friday, that is today, happens to be the deadline when the current spending plan lapses. Now, the Trump-backed temporary spending bill was rejected by the Republican-led House on Thursday. The Thursday capped a remarkable 2 days in the nation's capital that put the new president's authority to the test. The Trump and his advisors Elon Musk had threatened fellow Republicans to discard an earlier bipartisan bill. Now, the president-elect had demanded that the Republican leaders include a clause that would raise or waive off the federal debt ceiling before he takes office. However, the bill failed by a vote of 235 to 174. The 38 Republicans have voted against the will of the president-elect and the world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk. Now, nearly every Democrat voted against it. And after the vote, the House Speaker Mike Johnson said, and I quote him here, "We will regroup and we will come up with another solution." Now, Elon Musk has blamed the Democrats for the failure of a super fair and a simple bill. The House Democrat leader, Hakeem Jeffries, has called the proposal as simply laughable. He further added that extreme